So yeah, mama, how you and your boy are going?
So me, I'm good though, and I'm nice when I'm ready. But I just not like when him beat me up. But I know some do it because he love me, I'm gonna behave.
Sounds outrageous to you? Might be, but it's not. There's a lot of people being abused in relationships, so it is no joke. But how does this came to be? How do we get here? How did they get here? How did she allow this to happen? This is what I'm going to break down in this episode. Welcome back to the podcast Relationship Guru, and I'm your host, Corey. Let's get into it. And remember to like, share, and subscribe. Click the bell notification so you can get notified when I make a new video. Let's get right into it. In this day and age of social media, activists who copy and paste is the same idea and can't explain anything that they are so passionate about. What is abuse? A quick Google search will tell you that it is the use of something to bad effect or treat with cruelty or violence, especially regularly or repeatedly. So for example, knowing that a person is in love with you and you use that love against them to have your own way, which is using it to a bad effect, that is abusing your partner. And treating with cruelty or violence, especially regularly and repeatedly, whether physically, emotionally, or mentally, or it's abuse, one in the same. But Corey, why are you talking about abuse? Well, I'm talking about abuse because in part 1 of episode 4, Balance, we spoke of emotional intelligence and intelligence and how together they're working together cohesively forms wisdom. With that being said, we must learn how to distinguish between a person who is saying something to uplift us or someone who is saying something just to insult us or put us down, because there is a thin line and between the two. A person who genuinely wants us to do better and a person who comes with a malicious intent. And people nowadays tend not to know the difference, and because they want to live in whatever lie they choose to live in, everyone is labeled as a hater or bad mind, or no one see the youths them strive, and everybody allow them, let them live them life. So let's just get into it. A lot of abuse happens in the early years of person's life, from childhood, and it normally comes from the parents. In Jamaica, we have a overwhelming majority of single mother homes, so a lot of the abuse is done by women. Not saying women does all the abuse, but it is done mostly by them, because there's a lot of homes in Jamaica with an absent father, and even in those homes with a father, none of these fathers, or a lot of these fathers, don't even know what it means to be a father. So it's still a single mother home despite a father being there. So abuse, emotional abuse, a mother can emotionally abuse her child, as in telling them that they're not going to turn out to anything. Them going to stay like them worthless father or them worthless father, and love them on conditions, as in on the condition that they do something good. If they don't pass an exam, or if they don't do what is that the parent think is okay, then they do not receive love. The love is very conditional, and that messes up a child. And they go around trying to please, or overly trying to please and try to prove themselves, because they were never made to feel like they were worthy of love. It's something that they have to prove to become worthy, and that creates a lot of self-esteem issues. And how to correct this and how to be a better person, I spoke about that in the earlier episode. But moving on, yes, these are the things that lead to these kind of issues. And in relationships, I can heard from the excerpt that was played when the episode just began, the female rationalizing abuse. Now, why would someone rationalize abuse? Why would they do that? Also, children are physically abused, which is the most common type. But why would she rationalize that abuse that she is getting from her partner? Well, growing up, she, like most girls in that childhood sphere, would hear that, is when him beat you up and play with you in an abusive manner. So they are programmed to rationalize that and think of that because it's love. Why he beats her or why he disciplines her or stuff along that lines, and they find it okay and do not see a problem with it, to the point where if you try to speak out against it, they will defend the abuse that they are getting, and you wonder if she's mad or if the person is crazy or something. But there is something clinically known as Stockholm Syndrome, where the person being abused falls in love with their abuser. So they will defend the abuser non-stop, and it's okay because they have fallen in love with it. And it is even, it's even glorified in the media, in Hollywood, in a movie that is known as 365 Days, I think that's the name, where this man kidnaps a girl and tells her that if she don't love him back in a year, then he will let her go and stuff, and being all abusive. And enough women will watch this show and romanticize the idea of that, a person being abusive towards them, or because the movie is laced with pornographic images, they find it okay. But it is a man who kidnaps a girl against her will, abuses her, and she falls in love with the abuser. And people will see that as love, but it's not. It's Stockholm Syndrome, basic Stockholm Syndrome 101. And this idea is romanticized in Hollywood and fed to the media, fed to the public, where it's romanticized, and a lot of people see that. And that is why a lot of females like this kind of so-called domination when it's actually abuse, and they will get that from only a specific kind of guys who have more than likely been abused themselves by parents, whether physical, emotional, or even sexual abuse. It is proven that persons who have been abused will abuse others. So more than likely she will turn to the thug who will give her that kind of abuse and abuse her. And that thug would have been someone who have been abused, and his way of coping with the abuse he has gotten is to abuse someone else to regain that control he lost when he was being abused. So the cycle perpetuates itself. And there was once a man, when he was a child, he was left in the care of his sister, he and his younger brother. And yes, the sister would take care of them, but she would abuse them, the younger brother. And now that young man has grown up into an adult and does not find any young lady attractive over the age of 16 years old. That man's name is Robert Kelly. You may better know him as Robert Kelly. And there's another man who had an abusive mom who would physically abuse them, emotionally abuse them. And he is now on trial. Well, he won his trial against an abusive wife. His name is Johnny Depp. You may all know him because he came into the world and his first world view, his view of a woman was a woman who was abusive. So he thinks or rationalizes that and say this is what a woman should be. And he got himself into an abusive relationship. So we must look at ourselves and look within ourselves and look at how we were raised, what was said, and learn how to deal with our trauma before we go out into the world and try to become persons that someone will love. The fact is, a lot of us have a messed up past growing up. Our parents didn't treat us well. Our families, aunties and uncles didn't treat us well. And we are now messed up individuals as adults. Some of us got into relationships too early and take up stuff that we weren't ready for. And now it has messed us up emotionally, and we are still not ready to be proper adults because we have to heal and deal with that trauma before we can go out and love someone else. We have to love ourselves. We have to take into consideration the feeling of others and how they would feel about stuff that we would say before we say it. Our grannies, our grandma would say, think before you talk, and if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything. I remember someone said something to me. I don't remember what they say. You either heal your wounds or you will end up bleeding on everyone who never cut you